Hi, I'm Jack Last Name, and I want to welcome you to a bit of a big change in the BMF brand. We have a little saying here, it's not just about evolution, but revolution. We don't just evolve, we revolve. Now, what's all this cattywampus, you're all thinking? Well, it's actually this brand new idea that's never been attempted before. Talking about video games we like. You see, every now and again, you'll hear some dumb fuck say stupid shit like, why aren't video games fun anymore? Bitch, you just got bored of Call of Duty Warzone and Minecraft. If you look deeper, you'll actually find there's not just a lake or a sea, but an ocean of independently made video games made every single day by passionate people that could potentially fill the exact niche you're looking for. There is no genre too obscure, and no GameCube game with a mechanic you've only ever seen once and never again that 7 other people haven't also thought would be a really good idea. Want a new 2D platformer based on Mega Man? Gravity Circuit. Or what about a Mexican culture-inspired Metroidvania based around tarot cards, cooking, and detective work? Mariachi Legends. Have you ever thought a racing game needed quarter circle back inputs? Shut up! And drive. Oh, but I'm a big boy who likes my games with all the shooties and bad words that make me mummy sad. Oh, well, geez Louise, you've really painted me into a corner there. Surprise! Manus Day, Reaver, RoboQuest. This is so easy. But looking through indie games isn't easy. There are so many Vampire Survivor clones. Like a lot. A lot! And they tag them with every genre known to man. How is this a business manager? That's why we're doing something a little different. A showcase of some personally curated, independently made video games that cross the spectrum from genres you love to some you might not have even known existed. Stay tuned, and I'm positive you'll find something that catches your eye. Oh, and before we get started proper, some of you might remember the Indie Game Roundup, a very similar concept. Well, I'm sad to announce that the rodeo has closed down and the horses have been sent to the glue factory. They're very hard at work making pastes, epoxies, and everything in between. It wouldn't hurt to tell them they're doing a good job. If your biggest criticism of real life is how long it is, Force Reboot is the perfect game for you. Released into early access in August of 2022, Force Reboot is our shooter for the presentation, born from the same ilk as games like Ultra Kill. In fact, some people may say this game is a ripoff, but having a robot everyone wants to have sex with as your main character is not enough to make that allegation stick. See, something you gotta learn when learning to love indie games is that derivative works aren't bad. Far from it. Everybody takes inspiration from somewhere, and the more people who innovate on innovation, the better the players are off as they get more and more good games. You could easily say that Ultra Kill takes a lot from boomer shooters of old, like Quake and Unreal Tournament. No one game, despite being as popular as it is, owns its mechanics, and the more games that do play like Ultra Kill, the better. This goes for the whole discussion, but just because you recognize a mechanic doesn't make it a bad thing. You don't start throwing punches because 2 restaurants made Cobb salad. Besides, it's not like the developer is trying to hide it. They thank Hakata in the credits of the game. Oh, they stole his name too! So, Force Reboot is not a game interested in a story. When you move like this, it's hard to make any information stick that isn't there's the next enemy and there's the restart button. Robots have gone haywire. You've got to destroy them. Now, before you try Force Reboot, I will say that this is the fastest game I've ever played. The game expects you to know that, it wants you to keep up, and it's more than happy to drop you if you're weighing it down. The game is structured around 2 main mechanics. The first is that your speed is tied to your combo meter. The higher it is, and the longer you can keep it up, the faster you can move. Combos are kept up with killing, of course, but also by using all of your abilities: jumps, dashes, slides, and kicks. Kicks do not equal punches. We're playing a totally different ballgame. But where are you off to in such a hurry? Well, the second main mechanic is that your health is constantly draining. If you stop moving, you start dying. Killing enemies and entering new rooms gives you small health boosts, but as soon as you stop running or gunning, you start losing health fast. That's before factoring in the enemies coming to take a swing at you as well. Death is sudden and fast in Force Reboot. These two mechanics come together to make a difficult truth about the game. It's hard. Probably the most difficult game being shown today. If you don't want a game that's gonna force you to the edge of perfection, then maybe this isn't for you. Though there are some ways to make the job easier. A difficulty option on the main menu lets you ditch the draining health altogether, and your moveset holds the key to victory. Your slide move is your most important tool. I can count on one hand the amount of times I used melee and still have 5 fingers to spare, and there aren't many places worth jumping to. But I had my finger on the slide button for the entire game. Sliding not only gives you a big boost of speed forward, keeps you low to the ground to increase the chances you'll dodge an incoming shot, but most importantly, it gives you a 1.5 times damage buff. Sliding not only accomplishes getting you across the room as fast as possible, but killing things quicker too, so you're gonna want to be sliding as much as you can. If you keep up one slide for too long though, you'll eventually run out of momentum and just lay there, looking up at the ceiling, wondering what brought you to this point in your life. You know, the end. The slide is what fulfills this game's mission statement, and gets you to move as quickly as possible, zipping past enemies, nailing them as you slide to the door, before turning back to pick off any you might have missed. It's incredibly satisfying to dance your way through death and skate on to a narrow victory. And it's all the more exciting knowing the next room is more of the same. Death coming as fast as it does isn't as big of an issue either, when getting back into the game is just as fast. Sure, it stings to restart from the beginning, but as you're starting out, you'll find yourself not getting much further than the beginning anyway. But if you manage to clear a floor, the game opens up so much more, to the point that everything I've mentioned so far is inconsequential compared to what's behind the safe area. Clearing a floor gives you 4 options. These are 4 different upgrades that can enhance your offense, survivability, and change the rules of the game. You can unlock new guns, increase your damage, give yourself a shield, upgrade your melee options, debuff the enemies, and even start dual-wielding guns. The only thing that could catch your eye more is what's beneath it. Every upgrade comes with an associated debuff that's picked at random. Some of them don't matter. Enemies don't get hurt by traps. Didn't even know they could be. But then there are way more debilitating ones, like removing your slide's damage bonus, reducing your max health, making it drain even quicker, buffing enemies, healing enemies. Whose side are you on, gun? The give and take with this system makes every run different and exciting. There are some buffs that you would love to have. Increased damage, more health, better health regeneration, eliminating reloading. These are all great. But at the same time, they might get paired up with a debuff you'd want to avoid like the plague. Some of the worst ones make you gain less health from killing enemies, force you to always be moving forward, moving the aiming reticle while you move. One of them makes you unable to pause the game, so then you have to weigh your options. The upgrade is fantastic, but the debuff could be a run-ender. Conversely, you might see a debuff that's so minute that you end up picking it simply because the other 3 are really bad. There are even rare cases that offer no debuffs and give you a straight upgrade with no strings attached. Or sometimes they'll offer you a straight debuff with only strings attached. In cases like that, where you're confident with your loadout and see nothing worth adding, you can always just skip the upgrade entirely. If chewing rusty metal has lost all its appeal, you can try beating Force Reboot with only debuffs. I hear the prize for that is the developer will drive to your house to do a wellness check. The guns you can get from the upgrades as well can be a lot of fun too. The railgun I found to be the least useful. as well as the multi-pistol since heavy damage is nice, but I found having the choice between heavy damage and high fire rate leads me to picking high fire rate every time. The SMG is exactly that, and the regular pistol is great for quick bursts with a quick reload time. The best two weapons, though, start with the grenade launcher. Quick fire of 3 bouncing grenades that don't do self-damage, which means you can detonate them right in the opponent's face and slide off to do more killing. The absolute king of the weapons loadout, though, no surprise, is the shotgun. Any game that treats the shotgun less like a chainsaw with the range of a butter knife and more like the cannon that it is always gonna get a recommendation. But what makes Force Reboot's shotgun so perfect is how it interacts with the different upgrades. One of my favorite upgrades gives your bullets a 1 in 10 chance of exploding on contact. This is balanced with the pistol as it fires at an okay speed. Same with the SMG since the spread is absolutely crazy. With the shotgun though, it runs the check for every pellet, so it's virtually impossible to fire without a giant explosion. Even with God's perfect weapon though, the runs are still incredibly hard. Enemies may not be threatening by themselves, or even in medium-sized packs, but taking your eyes off of one for a second leaves you open to going back to square one. Turrets are a constant threat in almost every late-game room, and the final stretch before the end is above a pit that bounces you skyward if you touch it, which leaves you falling and losing health the entire time. I'm not a huge fan of this part of the game, and it can feel like the worst way to end a run since deaths can often be caused by anticlimactic life drain that takes place as you fall back to the ground. There are also some mechanics that I feel like are there for the sake of having them, like the projectile parrying kick and enemies having weak spots. With a shotgun, the enemy is the weak spot. The only times I ever remember that weak spots are a mechanic is when a debuff takes them away, and that's a really easy debuff to deal with. Then I remembered you can stack the 2 guns perk twice, which gives you 4 guns, and suddenly you become the world's most pissed off insect. The presentation as well works better than I ever expected. Having a game move this fast makes it hard for each bit of the environment to be distinct, but the game does a really good job. With the blocky PS1 style graphics, it's quick to read what's an enemy, where hazards are, and where the end of the room is. Its visual language is conveyed well enough that even when moving at breakneck paces, you're still able to absorb everything you need to. The game also having a live feed of fan art at the main menu is a very nice touch, as well as some posters in the starting room shouting out other momentum-based shooters like Reaver. Reaching the end of the course doesn't come with a boss fight or a cutscene or anything, you just log your time and... well, some girls are bound to be impressed by the 867th best Force Reboot player in the world. You can keep trying to get better and better times, but if you're looking to go that fast, you can always try out the game's Rush mode. In this mode, every door is open without needing to kill any enemies, and you can simply dash through as fast as you can. There's also Arena mode, which has waves of enemies, and an Endless mode, which lets you keep going for as long as possible. The game is still in active development. I would know, since I've been watching it grow for the better part of a year now, and new stuff is constantly being added. I think some boss fights would be a great addition, maybe a few different themes to fight through, but as it is, Force Reboot is a stunning example of turning the shooter formula on its head. The emphasis on speed and random chance to get the best upgrades makes it a shot of adrenaline when you pick it up, and makes it really hard to put down. Brief play sessions to get footage turned into hour-long cycles of getting a good upgrade. One more try. Oh, I killed that level. One more try. Oh, that was embarrassing. One more try. It's addictive for sure, and if you play it, you'll be certain to keep trying until you finally beat it. There is no reason that every game ever made couldn't be called a role-playing game. I jumped on the turtle. It's in Mario's character to do so. Whenever somebody hears that, though, their mind immediately goes to turn-based combat or maybe an action RPG. But really, lots of things can fill the RPG role, including this, Back to the Dawn. This is a prison-based RPG, where everybody just so happens to be an animal. What, is this game made for furries? Yeah. Yeah, of course it's made for furries. The devs made a fursuit of the main character. Are you stupid? Do you need me to spell it out for ya? I will. All I need are 2 R's, a Y, and most importantly, an FU! If you smell! Now, strangely, this game has a much heavier focus on plot than the game about a really fast robot who kicks things. You play as investigative journalist Thomas, who uncovers a conspiracy surrounding illegal toxic waste dumping being done by a plant owned by a relative of the mayor of the city. During election season, that sort of information can't be getting out. So instead, the mayor sends over a thug to plant drugs in our car and get us arrested. A non-violent drug offense obviously gets us 3 years in prison. The game's trying to go for realism after all. That's why we're playing as a fox. As soon as you enter the prison, the first thing you might notice is how gorgeous this game is. I'm willing to forgive Octopath Traveler's horrible name for introducing the world to how beautiful 2D HD games can be. Having the character sprites walk around 3D environments with the pixel texturing while having realistic light effects is mesmerizing to look at. There are some scenes in this game that are drop-dead beautiful, and the more effects it adds on, like realistic rain, makes you question for a second if this game's even indie at all. It's lucky then that this is more than just a pretty face. Back to the Dawn is a very detailed and immersive experience. Every mechanic and design choice was made to make you feel the crushing atmosphere of a prison. You have limited energy and mental power you can dedicate to tasks each day, a limited amount of time to use on different activities, a hunger bar that needs to be kept filled, money that you need to afford food to keep yourself fed, jobs you can do in order to get the money you need to get the food to keep yourself fed. You can play through a lot of this game and still not have seen everything it has to offer. Days are split up into a few different periods: head count, work and socialize, lunch, time in the yard, evening. Then it's time for sleep. In that time, there are dozens of different things you can do. From the start of my playthrough, I tried to follow the main quest line, which was to get a call with our lawyer. I didn't have enough money to use the phone though, so I had to get a job in the washroom to afford it. Even that requires you to take a physical beforehand though, where you can steal supplies while the doctor's out of the room. Jobs take the form of mini-games you can do that earn you both money and job points that you can put towards upgrading your status and getting better jobs in the future. From there, you have to go to lunch, and here's where another major factor of the game comes in. Every prisoner and staff member at the prison is interactable and a potential friend with their own detailed backstory. By talking to them, you can attempt to befriend them, which can increase your mood, open up quest lines, and give you unique items to barter with them for. On my way to lunch, I decided to shag up with the biggest dog in the yard. Unfortunately, I didn't understand the instructions, and I got a really tall IT manager to back me up. This guy's hobbies are watching the big game and sex. Of course, this does have its drawbacks. Not been in the joint for a single day, already becoming a gigolo. Also, lots of the inmates have pun names based on what animal they are, like Hakuna the Warthog, and the boss of the Sharptooths being Alex the Lion. After completing our job and getting a stomach full of food, we head out to the yard, where a bigger and tougher prisoner comes up, tells us our money is his money now, and we're back to square one. Now, I could have engaged him in a rousing game of fisticuffs, but my head is right where it belongs on my shoulders, so I think I'll lay off trying to fight him. A lot of the game's decisions come down to dice rolls that check your stats for how well you'll do. You get 2 rolls each time you make a decision, so even if your stats are low and you don't have any modifiers, you can still get lucky and win despite yourself. While it is a frustrating moment in the moment to have all your stuff taken away, it does help to establish your place in the pecking order. You're a nobody. Your life is worth less than dirt to these guys. It's up to you to prove them wrong. The yard we're in is actually where most of these stat increases come from, so you had better save up your focus and energy for this phase, as it's where you can make the most tangible changes to your stat spread. That stat spread is determined early on, as when you start the game, you get to pick from 3 different backgrounds for Thomas to have, depending on what type of reporting he did, all with their own benefits and drawbacks. You can also take more unsavory jobs while in the yard that pay a lot better but carry the risk of failure if you can't do them in a set amount of time, and they might also not coincide with your stat spread, which means you can't do them anyway. Getting back inside doesn't leave much else to do but focus on more socialization, and once that's done, it's off to bed. The loop this game creates is so interesting because of how stringently it holds itself to the theme it's created. You can feel the oppressive weight of being locked in a prison as the routine you're forced to carry out day after day starts to get to you. You'll slip up and start to forget about an aspect of your well-being. You won't have enough energy to work, which means you won't get paid. Then you can't eat and things just get worse from there. However, if you're able to keep a cool head, plan out your day in advance, and make the right friends, you can not only survive, but thrive in prison. One of the jobs I got to try and ingratiate myself to one of the prison gangs was to shake down the people who owed them money, and the roll to get that to work was too high. So the big tough debt collector said, "Time's up," and he said, "No," and I said, "You're right." That can be a pretty big problem with the game. It's got a big barrier for entry. The game expects you to be able to keep up with all these systems at once, and it's hard. There's no way to ease yourself into things, with only a few menus to explain how being stinky works. And reading about that versus putting it into practice is hard. It can be really difficult to enjoy the experience when it feels like the game is working against you at almost every turn. At one point, though, I managed to get the warden to give me a job that required me to infiltrate one of the 3 major gangs of the prison and steal an important piece of paper. Now, I could have gone and done it like he asked, but instead, I had the option to go to the boss of the gang, tell him about the plan, and then give the warden a fake paper he made instead. That satisfied the warden, got me in good with the gang, and was simpler than trying to pass skill checks to steal the paper. And you want to know how I found out I could do this? I tested it out. Lots of quests in the game work that way, where you're able to tackle them a lot differently depending on your skills. The game is hard. I won't lie to you and say that it isn't. I will say, though, that surviving doesn't mean you have to instantly try and complete as many quests as possible. Generalists are likely to be able to do more, but there's also incentive to specialize. If you pick a build at the start that wouldn't be fit for physical tasks like getting into fights and breaking things, just don't take those quests. Focus on charisma and intelligence. Build up a lot of money, and get other people to do it for you. The game offers so many different ways to tackle not just the quests, but the entire thing, that repeat playthroughs where you focus on a totally different aspect of the game can be really exciting. I was able to play the game early in its demo phase, and now that the game is officially launched, there's so much more content that's been added. Stuff like crafting, gardening, story routes, different jobs, and more were all locked off in the demo, so if what you've heard so far sounds interesting, then there's way more waiting for you in the full game. Characters all feel fully fleshed out with interesting backstories and motives all their own. The cast is incredibly lively and strange. There's no doubt you'll get attached to at least a few of these guys during your time playing. The writing as well is a cut above the rest. There's a lot of intrigue, character work, mystery. It's a story worth playing, and that's without all the other things that make the game so interesting. Going to prison doesn't require you to lie on your taxes anymore. Who knew? There's something very beautiful about a game that's unabashedly gory and gross. Cookie Cutter is a Metroidvania-style action game with a very heavy emphasis on grotesque horror and crass humor. It's unapologetic and in your face with this fact when you learn that your Navi helper for the game is your vagina. So, is this what a period is like? Was Bloodborne preparing us for something? You play as Cherry, a member of a race of robots called Denzels. Androids used as little more than a working class group on a planet called the Megastructure, a giant interconnected facility built around a dark energy void which also powers the Denzels. A roboticist named Shinji escapes from the owner of the Megastructure, Infonet, and decides to build her own Denzel, Cherry. The two fall in love and live peacefully until Infonet returns, kidnapping Shinji and brutalizing Cherry. I'm talking beat the dog shit out of her for a really long time. It's not until she gets found by a mechanic named Raz that she's finally pieced back together and wastes no time wasting everyone around her. The game's style is a huge standout feature, and is very stylized and gritty, not the least of which is thanks to the game being entirely hand-drawn. A Wario Land Shake It for a new generation. The animation work in this game is something else. Just because the designs for certain enemies can be gross, doesn't make it hard to appreciate that they're very well animated. The style as well rests in a sweet spot between over-the-top and readable. The game's trashy and punk style never comes at the expense of clarity. Backgrounds can be busy, but never overwhelming. Designs can be messy, but never blend in. In a phrase, the game's style is incredibly Adult Swim. It's excessive, but it works with that excess very well, to create a style that perfectly matches the game's punk tone. It's a game about a lesbian robot and her talking vagina ripping bugs in half to get back their creator wife. If it looked like Box Boy, then it would be weird. And this style of humor and presentation obviously isn't going to sit well with everybody. Some people will feel overwhelmed as they play. But even if it's not your cup of tea, the work that went into making it look the way it looked is undeniable, and it's clear the team is very experienced in the field. So the game is a looker, big deal. If it plays like trash, then it could look straight out of the Louvre, but I'm not playing it. Well, luckily, the gameplay itself is where the game starts to get really good. It's standard combat for a Metroidvania with hand-to-hand combat. You have your light attack as well as an interchangeable heavy attack with stuff like gauntlets and an electric guitar. At the start, you also have access to some defensive options, namely a dodge and parry. The United States government gives you a tax break if you put a parry in your indie game. That is the only explanation I can accept anymore. Combos with your light and heavy attacks are punchy and impactful. The lack of any complicated inputs means that pulling off large aerial raves is easy to do, and still satisfying since dropping a combo is very likely if you aren't staying aggressive. As a Metroidvania though, you're gonna run into lots of enemies. So what are you to do if you just want to keep making your way forward and don't want to do a beautiful air combo on the Tentacle Man? Well, that's where the parry starts to really shine. See, the game has a poise mechanic like out of Sekiro. Parrying an opponent's attack will automatically stagger them and put them in a stun state, where you can execute them for extra health. You can get them into this stagger state by simply doing a combo, but parries do it in a single button tap, or however many it needs to before the enemy is staggered, giving the player the ability to pick what fights they want to enter for the simple trade-off of a well-timed button press gives the game a much better sense of flow than most, since you can breeze through fights that might otherwise grind things to a halt. However, the trade-off is that the parry window is as strict as it is strange. Enemies flash purple when they're ready to be countered, but sometimes the window to do so is timed to some very odd places. Take these weird jellyfish guys. The window to parry them is right about when they start to overlap Cherry, and when you're starting out, that window can be really hard to get down. On top of them dealing loads more damage than usual enemies do, and they can be a real annoyance for a bit. After only a few encounters, I had the parry window down packed, and what used to be a scary enemy to encounter became free health and void energy. Right, void energy. That's the fuel you use for your heavy attacks, as well as a resource you can use to heal in case parry windows start to kick your ass. And they will. Sometimes instead of learning parry windows on really fast enemies, you'll learn that the better idea is to just hit them really hard until they die. This can really be true for the bosses in the game, since while they do have poise meters that let you instantly kill them, there's still the matter of living long enough to kill them. The Lost Guardian was a nightmare to fight, given how janky some parry windows were and how much damage he does. I died more times to him than I died in the entire game leading up to him. That's when I had to take a step back and realize I should play to my strengths. I can't parry all his moves, but the most basic one, I can parry 100% of the time. So if I simply dodge, hit him when I can, and parry the moves I know I can parry, I can beat him. In a Metroidvania game like this, though, the only character that the developers need to nail more than the main one is the environment itself. If you can't make the map fun and easy to get around, then everything else is just negated. Luckily, this game does a really good job at letting one room flow to the next. I rarely had to check my map, except to find specific landmarks, since I was able to keep track in my head pretty easily. Room designs, as well, throw just the right amount of enemy encounters and platforming challenges to keep you engaged. No room save for save rooms are ever truly free from danger. Okay, hold the f***ing phone. What the hell is the point of this room when I'm not around? The map also holds plenty of secrets for you to find, including little upgrade modules you can install to upgrade your health and void capacity, as well as increase your strength or the duration of air combos. Of course, like any good Metroidvania, the game is bursting with secrets for you to find, for loads of extra cash or permanent upgrades to make traversal a breeze, like a double jump and air dash. Movement in this game is fun and fast, and the ability to make it even better is one that makes searching all the more worth it. As for negatives, I really don't have much to say. The game is very pretty, in a very grunge sort of way. The gameplay is fast, rewarding, and fun, and the story, as it unfolded, made me care about everybody I met. All the freaks and weirdos you meet in the sewers of this megastructure are all fun and interesting. It's irreverent and rude. It's gonna rub people the wrong way who don't vibe with the style. But if you can give it a chance, there's a lot of heart under the trash. There's also a lot of other guts, and if you hit the parry just right, you'll see them too. I've been shot at! I've been put away for 5 calendars! I've been beaten senseless by God knows what this thing is! Frog's Adventure is about a froggy who thinks too much. You play as Mr. Frog, and an evil fairy gives you a brain. This cannot stand! From there, we embark on the most quaint journey of all time, filled with minor inconveniences that are overcome with basic problem-solving skills. This has to be one of the most mellow and low-stakes games I've ever played. It's so placid and calm, I love it. The art direction for this game is adorable. Everything looking like it came out of a coloring book or off the kitchen fridge is lovely. And the actual designs are just as good. All of the animal designs are simplistic and cute. The houses being discarded kettles and watering cans is a great touch. This game is just so charming to look at. I can't think of many games that have better emulated the feeling of playing a storybook like this one does. I'd say it does as good a job as Kirby's Epic Yarn of giving the world a tactile feeling. You can just imagine the waxy feel of the paper as you touch it, admiring the detail of what looks like a graphically simple game. I can't stress enough that the visuals are the best part of the game. It's hard to not feel good looking at a game that looks so cozy. The sound design helps with that feeling too. The soundtrack is made up entirely of slow, quiet ambiance that will pick up for a moment when you solve a puzzle before settling itself back down to a quiet hum. The inside of houses are especially cozy when they start adding in the sounds of cats purring. It's too much, guys, I can't take it. Just because I think the game is at its best when it's just sitting there looking pretty, doesn't mean the gameplay isn't there too. It certainly isn't a challenging game. But would you expect a game that looks like this to make you want to smash your controller? Because Mr. Bear's puzzle is a bitch. This game is a point-and-click adventure, where you have to solve everybody's problems in order to make it inside the giant tree in the center of town, find the fairy, and get your no brain back. The way you do this is through fetch quests, where everybody in town is in dire need of something in threes. Mr. Bird wants 3 worms. Mr. Bear wants 3 planks. It's your job to look around for everything that everyone needs. Items are pretty easy to find just lying around, and the ones that are out of reach are either easy enough to get to, or have a clever way to find them. You have to get 3 worms for Mr. Bird, but Mr. Fish also wants 1 to fish up the key that you need for the gate. It looks like you've collected all the worms on the map, but if you take one of the dewdrops that fall out of the sky and drop it on a mud puddle, a worm comes out. You need money to buy one of the wooden planks for Mr. Bear from Mr. Fish number 2, but where do you get the money? Well, you've got to plant a seed to sell him a potato. And you do that by waiting till nighttime when Mr. Rabbit finishes plucking all the weeds from his garden to plant it. Then you just water it a few times, you get the potato, give it to Mr. Fish number 2, you've got the plank. The game is loaded with cute little solutions like this. And it's just enough of a challenge where the answers aren't obvious, and you have to do a little critical thinking to get to them. You get a lot of these aha moments that the best adventure games have, where you put all the pieces of the puzzle together and feel like you just had a masterstroke. I wouldn't dare spoil any of the late game puzzles, but one requires a specific set of circumstances at a specific time of day that I felt very proud of putting together the way I did. Also, as the game goes on and you solve more puzzles, you unlock new abilities. Mr. Frog gets the ability to sing, which can get you past special blocks. And your new friends, Mr. Duck and Mr. Gator, can help you swim and jump up ledges. I've inherited the alligator's greatest power, and it's his jumping? I have the 8-foot vertical leap of the alligator. And I know I've probably overused this word and every synonym for it, but the quests you get are just so charming. When you try to recruit Mr. Gator, he won't come along because he's trying to sleep. But you find out that he can't because he threw his stuffed animal away. He also won't accept it unless it's nighttime, but you can't even visit the swamp he lives in at nighttime because it's too scary. Once you go through a few more puzzles to get his stuffed monkey Appy back, you go back to try to enter the swamp at night, and Appy makes you brave enough to go in on your own. That is the single cutest answer to a puzzle I've ever seen. I've said it dozens of times, but it really is the best way to sum up the game. It's charming, it's cute, it's a relaxing ride down a super chill river as you sightsee and watch for what floats past you. That isn't to say there aren't some parts I would have rather changed. A few puzzles require you to pick up dewdrops to water things or put out fires, but those drops drop at totally random times and places. So there's a chance parts of your playthrough are just going to be spent walking around hoping a drop falls near you, and that you get a chance to grab it before it dissipates. It's also a really, really short game. My first playthrough lasted a little over an hour and a half, but honestly, I wouldn't have had it any other way. The game's a great dose of cutesy puzzles with a very relaxing style that I think anybody should play if you're having a rough day. I'd even say that it's a really great game for younger players. Like really young. If you have kids, God, I hope they're not watching this far. Here, have a scary picture to scare them away. But I can't recommend this enough. If you're interested in the style, but not huge on the point-and-click adventure style though, I do recommend giving a peek at Sock Pop's other games, as they've developed dozens of games at this point across loads of different genres. Stacklands is a town-building card game in the same vein of something like Doodle God, where matching different cards builds different structures. Spring Blades is an RPG all about timing your attacks with fun characters. Berry People is a photography game where you explore all around different areas to find different berries to take photos of. Mistwards, which is their latest and most ambitious game that entered early access not too long ago, and is all about surviving on a desert island. Sock Pop churns out quirky and cute games so frequently that learning it's just 4 guys on the team is incredible. That's enough to count on one hand, with a finger left over for my official review. The Dreamcast is really more of a state of mind. Vivid Loop makes my head hurt, but in a way that makes me happy. I don't know how to describe it. You play as Cersei, a bunny who gets sucked into a TV with her friend Ekru, and now has to puzzle her way out. Not enough lore, shit game. If you want a story, here's the story of how much water Ekru can hold in his mouth. Are you satisfied yet? The game's lightness on plot is more than made up for by the graphics and gameplay. The game's style is firmly rooted in the late 90s, early 2000s Y2K aesthetic, and it's one of those styles I feel like I could look at forever and never get tired of it. I said this game feels like a Dreamcast game because the style feels exactly like something out of that era. 3D models emulating 2D imagery, something like Choo Choo Rocket. The game is trying to capture the feel of an arcade machine, and if this music and these visuals were right next to a Dance Dance Revolution machine in a dirty bowling alley, it would feel right at home. Character designs as well follow that similar simplistic feel. Cersei being just a collection of shapes with a little heart as her hair. Keychains of this thing would have made Newberry Comics a Fortune 500 company. Luckily for it, there's also an amazing game here to back it up. Vivid Loop is very directly inspired by Q*bert, with some notes taken from games like Kula World. The object of the game is to walk over panels to change them from one color to another. Simple as that. The more panels you flip over in a row, the higher this bar and your walk speed becomes, with it draining whenever you're idle or moving over blocks you've already flipped. Reach a certain percentage of panels flipped over, and you'll go into bonus mode, where you get a chance to flip over the remaining panels in the stage for extra points to improve your grade. The grade you get is based on loads of different factors. Did you manage to flip over the rest of the blocks during the bonus round? Did you get the bonus fruit that spawns in? The one that screws me over the most and keeps S's from turning to S pluses is longest tile chain. This factors in how long you were able to go without touching any already switched blocks, and led to my playstyle adapting to treat any already touched blocks like landmines that would end my run if I touched it. Despite how insane some levels can become, the game is incredibly forgiving when it comes to grading. It tells you the first time you clear a stage that the grade doesn't really matter. You finish the stage and that's more than enough. Sure, you should try and shoot to perfect the stage, but if you don't do it on your first try, you shouldn't stress about it. That is kinda lost on a guy who resets the stage as soon as he gets hit, or walks over a block he already touched. Or thinks he walked over a block he already touched. I didn't even know there were hit points in this game till I waited to see what happened after I got hit. Do you think I ever enjoy playing games? The game hides a lot of complexity behind a simple gameplay loop like this. Power-ups are the most obvious of them, with a varied arsenal including a massive hammer, paint balloons, wrapping paper, and a dash, just to name a few. Without them, you're helpless against the enemies that spawn in, and it can make movement between already flipped blocks even tighter, as you try to negotiate a path forward past the enemies. The courses themselves, though, are where much of the game's depth is revealed. At first, you'll be going through fairly standard courses, with a few that push you in new directions, with things like ledges you can drop down to that will take you to whole other parts of the level. The gimmicks start to stack up on top of each other, with paint rollers that will fill out whole rows as long as they can roll uninterrupted, which is great at first, but then you have to factor in how that's going to affect the run going forward. Yes, the roller is going to fill out a massive row of blocks and make your job much easier, but what if it makes things even harder in the long run? What if it fills out blocks you would have rather filled in yourself? Or ones that make progression to other parts of the level even more difficult? Play your cards wrong and you won't be able to get the highest grade because you won't be able to access all of the blocks during the bonus stage. Keeping an eye on what blocks have been filled in and how you're going to get to the next one is important for keeping your streak up, and especially in the bonus stage, where stepping on an already filled in spot will dramatically reduce your meter, and losing all of it will prematurely end the section. The game is so bright and cheery, but there are parts where you have to duck and weave between enemies and filled in blocks that can get really nerve-wracking. That's also before the level design starts going insane. Level 1-14 is so large and folds back in on itself in so many different places that you can easily get lost and screw yourself over with the block placement when the bonus level starts. Then later on in levels 2 and 3, the layouts get even more crazy, with new enemies like these dart dogs which can menace entire platforms, and snake enemies that take up multiple blocks. But neither of these compare to the insanity that comes when they introduce the double blocks. These are levels where you need to walk over the blocks once, and then again to turn them into a third color. The first level to do this makes it seem like it's gonna be easy, and then there's level 2-8. Teleporters that send you to different corners of the map. Switches you need to flip to activate other portions of the stage. Floor locks that need to be touched all in one motion or else they reset. And the double touch gimmick made this a stage I spent over 30 minutes trying to nail. But I never felt annoyed. That's what makes this game so much fun. Its arcade influences aren't just skin deep. It also takes the philosophy of mastering a stage. You have to learn every bit of it in and out, and then you'll be able to do it no problem. And the problems that you do come into are usually your own fault. Either not thinking about the path ahead of time, panicking and moving to the wrong block, or just dying. There are very few cases where the game feels like it's working against you. Even that penalty for moving over blocks you've already filled in is so minor that after a few more, you'll be right back to where you started. I say very few cases because there are still some gimmicks and the stages they inhabit that I could take or leave. The one structured around these trampolines is not my favorite. It took a while to get the reaction time down, and it would be a lot less frustrating if it would just let you jump when you press jump, instead of forcing it as soon as you step on the block. There are items you can buy in the overworld that can be used to help out in stages, but as soon as you tell me they limit the score and keep you from getting the highest grades, you might as well told me you just made them up. No, instead you can spend the money to give Cersei a new hat, then make her do this. Get down, Now, full disclosure, I haven't fully completed the game yet. Originally, this was just going to cover the demo, but after I enjoyed that so much, I went ahead and bought the full game, completed the first 2 levels, and got to work on finishing level 3 before I called it quits. At 15 stages a level, and 5 levels overall, this game is fit to burst with content. I do warn you, if you pick it up, it's gonna be really hard to put down, especially if you try and go for V ranks, which are only achievable on the higher difficulty. This game takes such a simple idea and manages to do so much with it, that it makes you forget that it also happens to look incredible. For my money, there aren't many better puzzle games you can buy today. And if you're looking to buy it today, the game just dropped on Switch. I say this with the utmost respect, this game would have sold millions of DSs if it came out in 2005. You ever fail a vibe check with a game so hard you punish yourself by playing a totally different game than what you expected? Cryptmaster darkened my doorstep one day, and from a glance, I thought it would be a dungeon-crawling adventure game with a dark tone, similar to the first two Elder Scrolls games, or Ultima. Little did I know that I got pretty much everything wrong. You start out by talking to our new best friend, the Cryptmaster. Get used to that face, it's what makes up most of the game. He's a necromancer who resurrected our quaint quartet so that we could guide his spirit out of the darkness and back up to the realm of the living. Plot-wise, the game isn't so much worried about telling a story, but rather using that simple framing device as a way to cart you from one section to the next, and show off whatever weird thing the journey will throw at you. Your method of getting to those weird things is via grid-based movement, hopping from one spot to the next as you take in the game's art direction. Before the other bombs the game has to throw at you, the visuals are going to be the first thing you see, and they're gorgeous. The entire game is presented in an unbreaking black and white palette, which gives it a hand-drawn feel, like you're navigating through a dungeon that's been drawn out for you as a part of a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. Outside of that single choice, the designs for everything from the environments to the incidentals littered around, to the friendlies and the hostels, has a very gothic feeling to it. Seeing these gross rats with voids for eyes, or flaming floating skulls that you can talk to, lends itself to the feeling of being trapped in a realm just below what would be considered reality. Some designs can be outright grotesque, like the Frog King that you meet that can be really rough to look at. The Cryptmaster himself, I think, is a really good design for a necromancer-type character. Piercing white eyes with the tiniest irises that cut right through you, scraggly hair, and spikes jutting out of his head like horns make him a really creepy sight the first few times you talk to him. If you're like me, this will be more than enough to convince you that this is a horror game. Well, that's where the game plays the first of several jokes on you. This isn't a horror game. It's not even a scary game. The game never intends to frighten you, and even more rarely tries to get a reaction out of you like that. No, this game is a comedy. A grimly dark journey up out of the underbelly of the world, past all sorts of horrors that the game treats as one big joke. When you want to save the game, you find the altar to the goddess of life, and smash it. Why the hell would you have use for it? You're already dead. That Frog King I told you about? You only go to meet him in the first place because you need to be royalty to use the elevator to reach the next level. So what do? Well, easy. You go find the Frog King and marry him. Any problem the game throws at you is sure to be met with the most harebrained scheme possible to get past it, and it never stops being surprising. Now, a good comedic premise like this would be let down if the game itself wasn't funny, but luckily for it, Cryptmaster is consistently a very funny game. Obviously, your mileage might vary. Humor is subjective and all. But a combination of the game's scenarios, writing, and above all else, voiceover is an absolute treat. The Cryptmaster himself is the embodiment of all of this. He's an extremely endearing and fun character to be around. He's your classic, wizened, old, and extremely evil-sounding necromancer. But the various voice lines they'll have for him show that he has a great range of emotion and character. Sometimes he'll be in complete control of a situation, and guiding the party from one place to another. Other times he'll be confused as to what the answer to a question could possibly be. And other times he's so bratty and petulant that it undercuts his aura completely.
Stop. Okay, now I'm bored. Let's play a game to pass the time. This was a favorite of mine for many centuries. I spot something, and you guess what it is. Ready? I spy with my all-seeing eye Something beginning with C. Anime? Why did you say that? Frankly, I don't think this is the game for you. All you had to do was type the word hit. I hinted, and then I outright instructed you. I even used 2 separate tooltips. What I'm saying is, it's not my fault if you didn't get it. Now, I do hope you haven't been playing for more than 2 hours, have you?
Yes.
Oh dear. Well, in that case, it's too late for a refund. Probably you'd better chalk this one up to experience.
The game's comedic value goes through the roof as you learn the other half of the game. This isn't an action RPG, it's a typing game. Everything you do is done by typing out the action, command, or phrase you want to respond with. To hit something, you write hit. To fish, you type out the name of the fish you want to catch. If someone asks you a question, type what you want to say in response. You'd think that this would be a pretty restrictive system, what with how hard it'll be to get people to stop writing penis and butthole. But that's the beauty of the game. If you do type penis and butthole...
Oh my, how shocking. For 17 centuries, I have consorted with the foulest demons and abominations imaginable. I have plumbed the depths of human depravity in my quest for dark knowledge. But oh, what a naughty word you used. Why, if I had blood, I'd be blushing.
The game knows. The game has a response for practically any and all prompts you'll type in. It doesn't matter what you type, when you type it, as long as it isn't gibberish or copywritten, the game has something to say. Most games that attempt something like this will lean on generative text or an AI to do something like this. Just synthesize the lines as needed from a voice bank. Not Cryptmaster. No, every single one of the responses is a recorded line from the actor for the Cryptmaster, Lee Williams. Whenever you hear the game talk back, you know the developers foresaw people writing that and knew how to respond. A lot of them do get similar responses, but the fact that so much effort has gone into the voiceover for the Cryptmaster is a great indicator of how much passion went into the game. The typing as well does give way to creating your own comedy with the situations you're given.
Hold, travelers, no dead may pass. Are you dead? You could be lying to me. If you are really alive, then tell me, what was the last piece of fruit you ate? An orange. But I have one more question. If you are truly a living person, this should be an easy one. Tell me, how would you describe the sun? Yes, it does sometimes look that color.
For as much as it might not seem that way though, there are actually moments of gameplay that break out between asking the Cryptmaster if he has a Nintendo Switch, the most prominent of which is combat. Your 4 adventurers, Joro, Sin, Mez, and Nyx, are all your archetypal members of an RPG party: the fighter, the thief, the bard, and the mage. When you enter combat, you can write down any of their actions for them to perform, and then you get set on a cooldown to wait for your next action. The game gives you the option to do this turn-based instead of active time, but frankly, even the game recommends going active time, so that's your best bet. This allows for a much greater panicked feeling, as you have to scurry around your keyboard to try to remember how to spell poke, as the opponent winds up to smack the vowels off of you. Your health is represented by your name. lose your name, and you lose the character. And leveling up enough allows you to add extra letters to your name. You want to know just how far in advance they planned for this game? The Crypt Master has a response no matter what combo of letters you pick, and doesn't approve of any of them.
Jorot? I don't like it. I'll stick with the old one.
But how do you level up and get access to new moves? Hit is good, but there are so many more letters out there. Well, that's where the game's extremely atypical progression system comes from. There are no traditional experience points, level ups, or drops. Instead, when an enemy is defeated, you can take a letter out of their name. Below your health is a little space to fill in a word, and if you pick the right letters when you beat an opponent, you'll fill in the missing letters of the words below their health. Once you either fill in the whole word or guess what letters you're missing, you'll either gain a new memory to help explain your character, or get a new ability to use in combat, each one having wildly varying effects. Joro, for instance, gets a lot of attacks that can break armor, Sin can buff her murder skill with words tied to bad memories, Mez can buff other members and remove their cooldown timers, and Nyx has a lot of moves with random damage totals. This progression system gives each fight a purpose, since any one of them could reveal the letter that's been stumping you for a whole level up. And if you are of low moral fiber and enjoy stealing money out of tip jars, you can pull up a guide and get to level 100 by the end of the first room. Now, there are some parts that I wish were different. After you get out of the crypt and into Rattopia, you get a quest to go get the marriage certificate from the Frog King. And I don't know what it was about this area, but I got lost for a really, really long time. The game is usually really good about direction. I never suffered a really bad roadblock like this one again, but something about the layout of this place made me feel like I was running in circles. There's also a card game in this game called whatever. And like Final Fantasy VIII, you can play with just about anybody. But I never really wanted to. After a few games with the Crypt Master himself, I kinda got all I wanted out of it and didn't seek out any more games. It's a totally optional side game, so it took nothing away from the base game, but when I see NPCs later on selling you cards for whatever, oh, I felt bad for their kids going hungry tonight, but I need all the souls I can get. Souls are both a currency for paying for items like coins and potion recipes, but they're also critically fuel for your actions like healing spells and attacks. Having it be a limited resource, the more costly actions taking more souls, it's cool. But when you get low on souls in the middle of rough parts of town, you'll curse that the system even exists. You can get a good amount of souls and letters from opening chests and playing guessing games to try to figure out what the Crypt Master has, or by talking to skulls that will give you riddles to solve. These are each, in their own way, fun additions that will give you a good chuckle, as you make him eat a mirror to give you a feel for its texture. But if you run out of either of these in the area you're stuck in, you're just gonna have to eat bugs off the wall or go fishing for a pittance of souls. Eating bugs gives you around 6 souls each time, and to get up to a comfortable total of around 200 will take way more grinding than you'd like. This can leave you caught out with no souls and therefore no way to defend yourself, and it feels bad when you're not failing because of a mismanaged cooldown timer or proccing an enemy's gimmick, but because of a totally separate system that can be influenced out of the fight. Regardless of some minor problems though, Crypt Master has so much to offer. It's got a beautiful style to fit with its unique gameplay and oodles of personality. That's the biggest part, really. This game is bursting with so much charisma and individuality that's really hard to come across, even in the super diverse ecosystem of indie games. Try this game out for an experience you can't get anywhere else. Do you think the developers snap a pencil every time somebody says, "What the car?" More like, "What the fuck?" See, you heard it too, right? What the Car is a part of a series you might be familiar with. Tri-Band's previous game, What the Golf and What the Bat, are fairly popular, and their latest game, What the Car, is finally getting a Steam release, after being a timed exclusive on the Apple Arcade. So, what is this game? And more pressingly, What the Car? Well, this game takes the form of a series of arcadey time trials where you have to try and get the best time. Shouldn't be too hard, right? Well, you're correct about that for a single cutscene, and then the wheels start to fall off. Or rather, they get popped off. Each different level in the game comes with a different control method. So each course doesn't just come with the challenge of navigating it, now it involves trying to figure out how the car even works. Some are easy enough to grasp. The car is wider. The car is longer. Both of these are things a car can be. Car, but the wheels are stilts, and the stilts are giraffes. Car, but the car is a hot rod, and the hot rod is made of glass. Car, but the car is upside down, and can only move by launching soccer balls backwards. Absurdity is the name of the game with What the Car, and every new mode of transport you get access to is gonna be stranger than the last. That said, the team did a really good job making sure that even if they're a little weird or odd to control at first, none of them are ever a pain to pilot. It'll take a few seconds to get used to, but after that, you've pretty much got all you need to succeed. The game doesn't really use many buttons. You got the button you use to enter levels, you got whatever your horn does this time around, since that can be anything from just honking to activating a jetpack, and finally the pause button, which you can use to catch your breath after failing one of the ice missions for the umpteenth time. It's gonna reflect poorly on my credit score if I can't gold rank this level. I gotta try harder! Yes, the first time you play through a level, it's so funny, and getting to the end is simply a gas. I'm gonna tear this whole fucking game down if you don't let me get a gold. We could have been friends, game, but then you gave me a grading system, and now neither of us will ever know peace. Complete the level with any time, and you'll get bronze. Miss out on gold by a few seconds, and you can bury me with that silver medal. Then if you want to contribute to society, you get gold. Gold times vary wildly between tracks. Depending on if it's early game or late game, you'll either gold rank it without trying, or you'll suffer for a while trying to find out where everybody else is cutting all that time from. Oh yeah, there's online leaderboards, and seeing people somehow complete courses while shaving several seconds off my time only confirms that everybody above me is cheating, and everybody below me isn't trying hard enough. The ice level kicked me around for a while as I tried to figure out where all the time I could save was from, right up until I realized that instead of climbing up this long overpass, I could scale the wall right next to it and shave off just enough time to win. A lot of levels require this out-of-the-box thinking, not just to get the best time, but also to collect cards that count towards your completion percentage. Some of these levels, though, are real ball-busters for the gold rank. For some of the secret levels hidden in the overworld, you're gonna become intimately familiar with the opening chords of the level's theme as you restart over and over and over again for a whopping 20 minutes. Huh. You know, when I say it out loud, it's not really that much time. In fact, it's shockingly low for a game like this. And if you ever get really angry at the game, you can always just take a step back and realize you're playing as a car that runs around on a pair of human legs. I think the game's disarming visuals and funny music do a lot to keep it from becoming a frustrating slog to try to get through. The game's style is simple, but charming, with the bears all around the place cheering you on, and the various goofy looks for the car itself always get at least a chuckle when you see him getting turned into a car. And like I said, the game isn't intensely frustrating on its own. Challenges that totally stump you can be overcome in less than 15 minutes, if you really set your mind to them and try to chart out what path works best, and what your power-up can really do to help you out. Remember that challenge I told you about where you get turned into glass? You can beat that one in 15 seconds if you just use the first boost pad to rocket off the ramp and swing hard to the left. Then you're practically at the finish line. This path with the boat can be frustrating since you have to tangle with this huge bear who's creating a whirlpool until you spot this waterfall that can lead you out to the other side and net you a card. Shortcuts and tricks like this are all over the tracks, and juggling this with trying to figure out how the ability for the stage works at all makes completing each of them a blast. The game has an extremely addictive high score quality to it, trying desperately to solve courses and get the gold crown, only to then try and get a top ranking score. That glass course is one I got really good at, and by the end I was able to rank as the number 6 fastest time. Okay, Force Reboot I get, but someone out there has to get real hot and bothered by what the car high scores. You gotta throw me a bone here. Speaking of bones, that's all that's gonna be left on you when you try out the deadly courses. These are the ones hidden in the overworld you need to go out of your way to find. And if you do, good luck getting out once you do. Honestly, I don't have a bad word to say about What the Car. It's a really addictive and charming game that I played way longer than I anticipated. That's only a little down to the demo having 33 whole levels in it. Dude, this is like a full game's length given away for free. I do, however, have several bad words to say about the community levels, including fuck and shit. Of all the games we've seen today, this one earns the award of how is this not more popular? It's not an award anybody is happy to get, but hey, some recognition is always nice. Robo-Dunk is an instantly eye-catching game that sets itself apart with the sort of art style that I can't believe was achieved by an indie developer. The game's characters are all crafted entirely out of legally distinct building block toys, and the fidelity they're modeled with honestly had me double-taking on whether or not they were digitized in like Mortal Kombat actors. I was doubly sure as the game also lets you get peeks at the actual real-world references used to make the characters, that you can make for yourself out of actual Lego. No, the models in the game are just stupidly high quality, and emulate the real thing down to having small nicks and scratches. But look at us here, talking about graphics and attention to detail. Oopsies need allying, goddammit, and it's about time I put these lanky limbs to good use. Robo-Dunk is a 2v2 basketball game, where you pick from a big roster of different robots to try to complete the age-old white whale of putting a ball in a hole. Each one of your selectable robots serves a different role on the team, with their main feature being the different stats and weapons they each have. Stats like speed, strength, and jump determine the role your robot will play, and ultimately, your team makeup. You can structure the team to be a fast guy and a strong guy so that you can act as enforcer to keep the other team away while you go for a dunk. You can have a team of speedsters that can duck and weave through any opening that the opponent leaves, or you can leave that sort of synergy up to the weapons. Each robot has a distinct weapon at their disposal, ranging from rockets, spread shots, shields, and lasers. And they can totally turn around a match in your favor if you time them right. They're limited by the amount of ammo you have at a given time, which means that if you start firing them off at random, you're never gonna hit anything. Unless you pick Techie. The designs across all the robots you can pick as well range from cute and charming to legitimately cool mech designs. It's usually easy enough to remember what each mech does at a glance thanks to their designs. Devil drops mines. Shotgun Chest Man has a shotgun. Big Arm Terry swings his big arm. When you're in the middle of a game, it's important to keep track of these sorts of things. But what does a game of Robo-Dunk look like? Well, like I said, it's 2v2 basketball action, just like NBA Jam. This time, though, the roughness is entirely necessary. Dribbling is a thing of the past, and by pressing X, you can ram headlong into an enemy and steal the ball. And while you have possession, that ram turns into a shield that can stop the exact same thing from happening to you. Possession is 9/10 of the law, and you're 1/10 of the player I am, you turbo dweeb! Not only are dribbling and civility removed from the future of basketball, free throws are too. Those were weighing us down and keeping us from making more jobs in the backboard industry. Dunks only. By holding down A, you can charge up a jump, and then pressing A again while in the air will let you dunk the basketball, earning you points depending on how long you held down the button for. You can go for quick and easy one-point dunks, or conjure up something resembling a spine to go for earth-shattering 4-pointers from the outer atmosphere. And just in case you thought all hope was lost, you can always just charge up your own jump during theirs, go in and teach them a lesson. This game is by far one of the best pick-up-and-play multiplayer games I've seen in a long time. The controls are simple enough to explain, and every game already starts with a splash screen to explain the rules. So give people a little time, and after a game or two, they should understand the basics. As a multiplayer game, letting all 4 players control their own robots means everybody's going to be in the action at all times. And with all the weapons that will be flying around and stage hazards, it's gonna be complete chaos. That's right, the stages themselves usually carry a gimmick to jazz things up. Whether that be bumpers, oil slicks, falling mines, the game proudly touts that no 2 games are ever going to play the same. And that's completely true. Across dozens of games, I doubt I had 2 games that played anything like each other. Those dozens of games were played mainly in story mode. You would be right for asking, what sort of story does a basketball game have? The story of most games is the odyssey from one side of the court to the other. Oh, you sweet summer idiot. Robo-Dunk's story mode is a roguelike gauntlet of game after game with upgrades to be earned all along the way, building up your bots slowly and surely into an all-star team. The more games you play, the more money you earn, and those can either go into permanent upgrades for your robots, or into more options for the random loadout of temporary upgrades you can select at the start of matches and between rounds. At the end of every game, you'll also get the chance to permanently add an upgrade to each of your robots. Of course, you can just show favoritism and load up both upgrades on one robot while leaving the other one out in the cold, but good luck when your star player gets his leg broken in an unrelated locker room leg breaking. You also get different modifiers at the end of games depending on how many buckets you slammed, how many times you tackled, and a final modifier based on difficulty. The lower the difficulty, the lower the modifier. After every match, you also get a tiny nugget of lore. And when I told you this game has a story, God does it. Stages, teams, individual robots, world history, how the game was developed. Gods? The game's lore is so much more in-depth than it has any right to be. And realistically, it's too much. Basketball shouldn't have lore. But I'm also wrong, because basketball having lore is hilarious. These entries are so melodramatic that they loop all the way back around to being great, discussing the evolution of these robots from killing machines meant to wage war into Harlem Globetrotters, that they're a nice post-match cooldown after what might have been a really close game. And these games can get really close. The AI difficulty curve is perfect to slowly let you get accustomed before ratcheting up the tension as the opponent gets more and more competent, until eventually games come down to buzzer-beater finishes. Watching the difficulty modifier slowly increase until it finally reaches blue is incredibly satisfying. And getting a feel for your team makeup is a super validating loop. There aren't many games that get you so attached to little Lego figures so easily, but only after a few games, you're really gonna care about the robots you picked to dunk your way to victory. The game does kinda have a cooldown system where robots slowly lose their value the more you use them, and eventually start costing money to keep them on the field. but for my main combo of Taboo and Beast, they're worth the loss of money if it means I can keep winning games. The game does have roguelike elements, but in a game like this, where a game generally lasts only around a few minutes, it's not that big a deal that failure means you have to restart from the beginning. You get to keep the upgrades you unlocked on the random table, so you can at least start stacking early on, so it's like you didn't really lose that much at all. Just kidding, I lost everything, pride included. The final boss is a nightmare, with every hazard going off at the same time and an absolutely brutal weapon. My team gets washed and we're sent all the way back to the minor leagues. But money debuff be damned, my boys are gonna take home the gold. And on the second try, we come out on top and get named Undisputed Kings of Basketball. Of all the games I played today, I seriously want you to try out RoboDunk first and foremost. It's got the lowest barrier for entry, is by far the easiest to pick up and play right out of the gate, and is no doubt going to have the most mass appeal. I think a small surge could send this game into the stratosphere. More people simply need to know about it. Dude, words are the best. You can just throw a couple of them together in whatever order you want, and you have a video game. Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator is a game where the title doubles as a manual. You are simulating the life of an organ trader dealing with space warlords. A dream we've all had. The concept gets a little deeper than that, but in all fairness, what you hear is what you get. At the start of the game, you get briefed on the state of things, how organ traders are super important, and how you just became one. It's time to get to work, and from there, you're on the open market, wheeling and dealing in all things spleen. The game works in two phases. The first phase is the panic phase. You get a few different tabs, including the tab where you buy organs, another to check your cargo hull and keep track of inventory, one to take requests to buy certain organs, and another to fulfill them. After you take on a request, you just have to sit in the buy section and wait for the right organ to show up. Guy wants a heart, you buy him a heart. He pays you. Sound simple? Did you miss the part where I said it was a human heart? Strategy in the early game mainly comes down to trying to maximize profits. High-value requests will often require you to go for specific, hard-to-find organs, and while it may be worth it to go for lots of low-value requests to start, you have to make sure that your expenses don't outweigh your profit. If a guy is paying $100 for a heart, don't buy a $200 heart, because then you just fleeced yourself out of $100. No, instead, you have to find the lowest value organ that still meets your client's specifications. It's a basic tenet of salesmanship. You gotta mark it up to make sure you get something out of this. Easier said than done though, since this is an open organ market. Other traders will be present at pretty much every sales period and will be buying up organs just the same as you. Except they seem to have bottomless pockets that let them buy up organs willy-nilly, and then never sell them. You'd think they needed organs for how many they buy. Jeez Louise! Don't they know I'm running a business here? If you see an organ you need, you better get it fast, because otherwise a recreational organ collector might swipe it out from under you. This might result in you ignoring the price tag and buying something that at best breaks even, or at worst, loses you money. Luckily, there's more to life than just money, like ways to make more money. Alongside your net worth is also your net worth to society, as you have a reputation stat that increases whenever you finish a job. The higher your reputation, the more likely you are to get high-value requests, and the cycle feeds into itself. Do as many jobs as you can to get as much money and reputation as you can to use those to get more money and more reputation. Except the high price for some requests can come at an even greater cost to you. Certain jobs will require you to look much closer at the organs you buy, since each one comes with a whole load of stats that the client can request. This guy doesn't just want a set of lungs, he needs a set of gigantic lungs for his dead god. So now instead of just picking a set of lungs up off the ground and mailing them across the galaxy, you have to pay real attention and beg for the chance just to try to buy the organs you need. And if you find the one you've been looking for days, you'd better be sure that your cargo hull isn't full or damaged, because you'll need to fix that. And then once you do, the organ's already gone. This happened to me no less than 100 times just trying to buy a valuable stomach for this guy. That means you have to spend more time trolling the buy tab, praying the organ you need just drops into your lap at an affordable price. Which means you ignore other requests, then you feel bad about it and take on more requests so you have more to look for, and... well, that's strange. The gasoline seems to have made the fire angrier. The actual trading portion of the game is so stressful and nerve-wracking, I found myself wanting to pound the table as I shouted for a windpipe to finally show up, tapping back and forth to see what I could possibly do to make the process work better, and then missing my chance as some jerk bought up the only windpipe to add to his own neck to make it longer. Dude, transmuting into a giraffe is just a fad! Then you start to throw in random events, like organ surpluses, which drive down the price and flood the storefront, and conservation updates, which jack up the price for human organs, and it gets even more chaotic. You wanna know the funniest part? This section's only 2 minutes long. You are stuck in a washing machine full of metal bats for 2 minutes, but after that, the music kicks in, and you take a second to breathe. In between your 2 minutes in hell, you can check out the requests you need to fulfill so you know what to look out for when you throw yourself back into the breach, as well as check in on your fellow traders. You can ask them for favors, which will cost a lot but gain you a lot of reputation, or just bribe them to sit out the next trading section so you can actually pick up a few organs and fulfill the requests that are burning a hole in your inventory. Then there's the stock market. I like it when the number goes up. When the number goes up, that means I'm winning, and I love winning. Buy stock in certain organs and watch as the market fluctuates depending on certain random events you can partake in during the trading portions. For instance, remember when I said that conservation reports jacked up human organ prices? Well, you can imagine that being named the 7th most endangered species in the universe means that anybody who invested in human organs is about to make a killing. And would you look at who just diversified his portfolio into hearts and nervous systems? In fact, you can influence a lot depending on what jobs you take or don't take. You get broken into the industry by Mentor Minter, a renowned trader who starts off kind before shaking you down as soon as you start seeing success. Well, you can take on a request from an assassin to buy organs that let you lure Mentor into a trap to get him killed. It costs a hell of a lot of money, but once you take him out, you get shipped back a nice little keepsake. His organs and flesh sewn into a portrait that you hang up in your office. He's still alive during this, by the way. It wouldn't be satisfying to throw wadded up balls of paper at him if he was dead? Dummy. The visuals for the game are suitably between grotesque and nightmarish, but also a little funny, as you sell an inflating and deflating bladder to a sentient ice cream cone. It's got a very distinct style that instantly becomes recognizable, but also, to some, could feed into the game's biggest issue. It's overwhelming. If you don't handle stress well, this game's gonna suck, because you are constantly under the gun for some sort of deadline or pleading with the game to just give you the organ you need, and how it handles this is sometimes frustrating as hell. See, if your client wants a valuable eyeball, you need to find a valuable eyeball. But let's say you end up getting a rare eyeball instead. Rare is a tier above valuable, so they should be more than happy to accept one that's even better than what they wanted. No, you need to wait until a worse product that they'll accept comes in, and it's an interaction that leads to more frustration than anything. Now you don't just gotta pray for good organs, but bad ones too! I'm sending God mixed signals, and he's sending back a flood. I can also see the gameplay getting old after a lot of time played. It's a simple game that puts on a lot of pressure for you to succeed at a very simple task. But importantly, it's usually always an enjoyable experience. Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator is a satisfying business sim that just so happens to wrap itself in a shell of absolute absurdity. It takes a lot to make a game about watching the stock market and trading interesting. It turns out that all was needed was aliens. By the way, if you have a Microsoft Kinect that's just burning a hole in your closet, this game is Kinect compatible. Hook up a Kinect 2 from the Xbox One, and you can play the game using entirely motion controls. No joke, this was put into the game because the developers thought it would be funny, and there's no rules against it. So, if you want to play the game but want to hate it really badly, hook up your Kinect. Yes, even fighting games are being made independently. One of the most difficult genres when it comes to balancing and implementation, and yet still smaller studios are finding ways to make them work. Mastroscope is a one-on-one fighting game released on Halloween last year that's based around Mexican cinema and culture, specifically horror movies from the 50s and 70s. Imagine if Darkstalkers could get over Morrigan for 5 minutes and added one of the best fighting game rosters you've ever seen. Now, obviously, I'm biased. This genre of movies is one of my absolute favorites. The filmography of El Santo not only led to the greatest film posters of all time, but they're also a genuine blast to watch, and Mastroscope clearly has so much love for this type of film in every character. Of course, El Fausto is a pretty clear parallel to The Masked Man, right down to his ray gun, but then you have La Llorona out of Curse of the Crying Woman from 1963. The werewolf Kitty is plucked straight from The She-Wolf from 1966. Penumbra, I think, is inspired by The Hell of Frankenstein from 1960, but this is a game about one character and one character only. The roster is instantly recognizable to those with at least a passing knowledge of Mexican horror movies. But even if you don't know them, it's still an interesting Monster Mash lineup. A close second in terms of favorite characters is Graf von Drachenhausen. But if you really need me to say it, the best character by far is El Charro Negro. Holy hell, how has Killer Instinct not taught people that adding a skeleton instantly improves any fighting game roster? The references are so much more than skin deep though, as every character has at least a few references to other fighting games and their movesets. Let's get the obvious one out of the way. You're not gonna make a fighting game based around Mexico and not include some King of Fighters. So El Fausto has Clark's Rolling Cradle from 96 onwards. One that I certainly didn't see coming was Charro having Dante's aerial gun spin from UMVC3, or Piscario taking his electric attack from, of all places, Necro in Third Strike. Lizabelle, the vampire girl, aside from being Lilith from Darkstalkers, not only has a reference to Jetta's soul contracts, but straight up has Akuma's Raging Demon back symbol. However, my favorite reference comes from one of those favorite characters of mine, Graf von Drachenhausen. For one of his special moves, he straight up does Dio's Stand Rush from Heritage for the Future. No bones about it, same stance from both the user and the stand. It's so blatant, but so cool to see. It makes the game feel less like just a cinema movie monster mashup, but also a mashup of tons of different fighting game franchises. Some of my favorites to play include, of course, Graf von Drachenhausen and El Charro Negro, but Kitty as well as Yotkadl were super fun to play as. That's thanks to the controls. Mastroscope actually has a bit more in common with Smash Bros than it does Street Fighter. The game has 2 main attack buttons, for both normal and special moves, as well as a block button, with throws being done by hitting attack and block at the same time. Every character has a basic 3-hit combo that can be done standing or crouching, with medium and heavy variants depending on if you're holding back or forward. The real stars, though, are the special moves. with different ones coming out depending on the direction: neutral, forward, back, and down. While you're in the air, all of these moves also get a small variation. This is a very simple fighter to pick up. And if you're looking for MVC combos, sorry, not even Capcom wants to do those. What that simplicity does mean, though, is that the game is stupid easy to learn. And even me, someone with hand-eye coordination so bad I only just realized I was holding the controller upside down, was able to pull off some flashy combos. With merely 2 buttons, the game lets you pull off some impressive stuff. And if you dedicate yourself to learning a character, you'll be sure to find combo strings that are flashy, satisfying to pull off, and deal loads of damage. You can put these combos to use in either local battles, fights against the CPU, online battles, which I was shocked to see included, or arcade mode, which takes you through a few fights before the final boss. For my journey, I saddled up with El Charro Negro, and what a fun character to play as! He's got really long-range normals thanks to his guns, can keep people away by firing them, and has a massive spectral horse he can use to kick people back. The best move, though? The lasso. Lasso is a long-range grab that pulls the opponent in and bounces them, leaving potential for an air combo. The air lasso, though, bounces way higher, and gives you the chance to combo one lasso into another. Doing this twice in a row felt great. Doing it 3 times in a row made me think I was good at fighting games. I've recently discovered a new invention. They made a guy whose only job is to kick my ass. A feature I've failed to mention as well is that instead of spending meters on enhanced special moves, you can do EX and super moves by holding the button down instead. It leaves you as a sitting duck for a little bit, but if the enemy's on the approach or in the air, a well-timed super move can cut a healthy health bar down in its prime. The bar you do see is actually your Mostro gauge, and by pressing attack and special at the same time, you get automatic special moves instead of having to charge them. Yet another way that the game manages to keep things simple while not lowering the skill ceiling or limiting expression. It was in arcade mode I also found a wealth of characters not in the base roster, like these cat girls and a priestess. I'm not sure if these characters can be unlocked somehow, but the devs have made it clear that this game is getting post-launch support. One of the more recent characters released was Kukamon, and he's fantastic. The final boss of arcade mode is Starman, and remember how I said you can't make a Mexican fighting game without King of Fighters? They picked the wrong part of the game to take. Oh, Starman's a tough one. A classic brutal fighting game boss. And not quite as genocide or cuttery as I would have thought to have seen, but unlimited Mostro gauge means that you're likely to fly into a pillar of light and stop a combo short. Beating him gives you a brief comic-style arcade mode ending, and the credits. As for things I think could change, there was some noticeable glitching with certain characters. Drachenhausen has a nasty habit of turning around mid-combo with no explanation, and it made responding to attacks a lot harder than it should have been. Also, like I said, this takes the block button from Mortal Kombat, and unlearning holding back to block is just really hard for me. I know it has to be this way for throws, but I'd rather the choice between a block button and holding back to block with a standard throw button. As well, Pescario and La Mujer Vampiro feel a lot less polished than the rest of the roster. I think they've been around the longest since they were in the game's trailer when it was on mobile devices, and they're the first 2 characters you see on the menu. Odd choice for the Ken and Ryu dynamic, but I'm here for it. And if this is a deal breaker, the game uses delay-based netcode over rollback. I don't really think it's fair to ask an indie dev to do something that Arc System Works took like 5 years to add to Dragon Ball FighterZ, but it is something to note. Really though, despite all of this, it's still an incredibly fun fighting game. The love for both the culture and fighting games as a whole is so evident in every detail. I haven't even mentioned how every stage has a black and white and Technicolor version, or how the game can be played in the old red and blue 3D by switching it on in the options. Mastroscope needs only a little bit more polishing to be among my favorite indie fighting games. And maybe not up there with Skullgirls or Them's Fightin' Herds, but hey, if you can't beat them there, you can always shoot for better employee retention. I'm not over it. Wow, it's been quite the trip through Independent Game Boulevard. We sure did have a lot of fun. Remember when I talked for over an hour? You didn't pipe up once. I was worried you were either uninterested or dead. If it's the former, can't help you there. If it's the latter, I know a guy. Hopefully even one of these has caught your interest and sparked you to look in for yourself. There are dozens of these things made every single day, and with just a little bit of effort and a large enough hatchet to cut through the underbrush, you can find so much to love.